Thank you everyone for coming. We're going to talk about tokenizing the creator class. So I'm sure we're going to dive into social tokens, NFTs. Here today we have three esteemed panelists. Starting on my right, we have Alex Zhang of Friends with Benefits. Then we have Nicole Davis of Seed Club. And finally we have Chris Fortier from Rally. So if everyone could just quiet down a little. I know lunch is outside if you want to continue networking, and we're going to get started. So before we dive into the questions, I would like for each of you just to kind of give the 15-second spiel of what it is your platform or community does. So Alex, we can start with you.
My name's Alex. Thanks for having me. Really excited to be up here with some new friends and old friends. I run Friends with Benefits, which is a social token and a community of artists, creatives, and technologists. The sort of main difference is to join the community and to participate in the community, you need to hold the token to gain access and to be able to participate. And so the central premise is if all community members hold equity or a token in the community that they're participating in, will that incentivize the community members to make it a better place if they get to sort of participate in that collective upside. And so over the last year, we watched community members come together and not only congregate on Discord, but now start to build products, create content, throw events and parties for each other, all within this sort of enclosed ecosystem, all bound by the FWB token.
Nicole?
Hey, so thanks for having me. My name's Nicole. I head up community and education at Seed Club. Seed Club is, I guess, using a Web 2 model, like a Y Combinator for social tokens. It's a meeting place and community for people to level up their knowledge and experience with social tokens, and for the ecosystem to then be stronger as well. The main crux of our business is an accelerator. We are now just about to announce our third accelerator. We had a crazy number of applications and a really large cohort coming in because the quality was pretty impressive. So we help social token communities accelerate, launch their tokens, some evolve into DAOs. And then we do a lot of work in the space with some sort of like white glove studio projects, and then again, bringing creators and communities together to launch their own social tokens, to work together, to collaborate, and again, to level up their knowledge and make the entire space as strong as possible.
Thanks, Mason. I'm Chris, VP of Product for Rally.io. We are a crypto toolbox for creators. So we are bridging Web3 innovations to creators who have a bunch of Web2 fans who are interested in crypto but may not know exactly how to get involved or what they need to do. And we allow those creators to create their own economies. It's a combination of social tokens and NFTs. And our objective is to make sure that creators have true ownership of their communities and an ability to kind of chart their own path and monetize themselves and their acts of creation using the latest in crypto and Web3 technologies. Rally has, we launch coins every week and have creators such as Megadeth, or Portugal the Man, all the way through to sports stars. And basically we're allowing anyone to really learn Web3 and get involved and find a way to bring their fans along with them.
Awesome, thank you. Now that the landscape is kind of set, I would love to just jump into, as we talk about creators, them tokenizing, whether it's their artwork or themselves, their brands, are there any most successful strategies or strategies that look incredibly promising that you've come across? Chris, we can start with you.
So one of the things we've noticed in the space is social tokens are nebulous as a metaphor. If you tie a lot of utility to social tokens, it reduces their usability as a currency. Basically, it encourages hoarding. People want to hold on to their social tokens. It makes them feel like they lose utility if they use them for transactions or use them for sort of as flow. So with Rally, we're really trying to emphasize that an economy for a creator needs a currency and things to buy. The most obvious things to buy, we think, are digital goods, NFTs. And we are having our creators lean into the idea that their social tokens should be something that is accumulated and spent, and we incentivize economic activity sort of in that definition. And then when a fan goes to purchase something, it should be something that has more durable utility. And an NFT is perfect for that because one, it has an expectation of display, two, it has an expectation of permanence, and three, thanks to radical ownership, the fan then has the ability to sell that, to pass it on, to exchange it to someone who's more interested. And ultimately, the combination of those two is what really creates a functional economy, at least in the Rally ecosystem.
Go for Nicole.
Yeah, on our end, I think that we have some projects that have come recently or evolved out of our accelerator. So Forefront, and then most recently Jump, which is a really interesting project. So Jump, the founder came from branding and marketing, and he knows that these sort of Web 2 brands are not going to be able to get into the social token space as early as they'd like. So Jump is this learning community and networking professional community where all of these brand and marketing execs can come together, learn about social tokens and Web3 while also experiencing it themselves. And so I think that, for us, what we've seen is when communities already exist or when they're sort of primed to exist, the social token really acts just as this on-chain bond. So rather than existing on LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram or sort of whatever platform is right for that community, you can have the relationships exist on-chain, and then discourse can happen on Discord or wherever feels right for that group. I think the other thing that's really exciting is we're seeing some projects coming through our studio where it's not going to rely on Discord, and so it's going to feel like much more a sort of wrapped experience where the NFTs and social tokens are part of the experience, and there's certainly ways that people enter the community, but it's not going to be sort of central to it. It's going to be really about the experience that they came for originally.
I think we could all benefit from less Discord channels.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm full.
Absolutely, yeah.
Alex?
Yeah, I agree with what everyone sort of shared. I think the one thing I'd add is when looking at launching, whether it's a social token, whether it's an NFT, it's almost a cliche, but I think really building the rails for community to be first and for community to thrive, not inherently speculative value or ability for, let's say, people to make a quick buck. I think we all see, even in the beginning where utility hasn't even been proven per se yet with either specific NFTs or social tokens, it's about more of a sort of in community or in culture status symbol or badging or hierarchy, if you will, that allows for even non-financial value to be placed amongst these assets that allow for the community to then sort of build and rally around that. So I think in terms of the most successful projects I've seen, they've started where it hasn't been about token price or it hasn't been about floor price, but really about what means something as a totem or a ritual within an existing or sort of a burgeoning community that everyone can sort of rally behind and sort of build on top of, that then I think defines almost like the future value of that specific asset.
Definitely, and the social value has been a unique value proposition that whether it's social tokens or NFTs have both kind of focused on. As your communities look at how you can either combine social tokens or NFTs, in some senses they offer competing models because Bored Ape Yacht Club you can hold a Bored Ape, get access to the Discord, Friends with Benefits, you hold a fungible token. Do you see those as competing models? And if you do see them as competing models, is there one that you think is more effective for a creator?
I definitely don't see them as competing models. I think it's really going to be the most exciting projects harmonize both in really interesting ways because they have clear sort of pros and cons in terms of use cases for tokens or for NFTs. And so I think there's no right or wrong answer as to what you launch first or second, but I think it's really the sort of puzzle piece or Jenga, if you will, of how you roll that out and at what time and what sort of and how they sort of interplay with each other. In an instance where I've always viewed the social token as sort of more of an equity, if you will. It allows for a community member to feel ownership in a community or in a project. However, NFTs have the benefits of sort of the fluidity amongst trading, selling, flipping. It has a little bit more of a sort of a cultural pattern that allows for easier sort of badging and different I guess functions per NFT versus a social token. As Chris mentioned earlier, has some of the shortcomings of people love to just sort of hold on to that, and we still have to sort of break through that, I guess, pattern of encouraging people to spend within existing communities, because I think to date, especially, how Friends with Benefits is structured is you need to hold 75 to remain in the community. So it's not really incentivizing people to sell because then they lose access to the community. And I think social tokens, including ourselves, need to sort of solve that. And NFTs, I think, present one way to allow for sort of primaries and secondaries to be built around our different sort of outposts or neighborhoods, if you will. That it sort of reward and incentivize more of the behavior we want to see of like movement and mobility and sort of fungibility, if you will.
Yeah, Nicole, how do you?
I was just going to amplify something Alex
in.
was saying. I think you're exactly right on social tokens as an equity component or a long-term value component. With our model, our creators receive a large genesis stake of their own social tokens, and that's designed to allow them to participate in the sort of improvements and increase in their economy over time. That would be much harder to do just with NFTs. And so the combination of the two really does sort of address certain use cases or alternative uses. I also find fungible tokens or social tokens are a lot easier to hand out for engagement. So one of my sort of meta criticisms of a lot of crypto is you essentially have to have cash to walk in the door. There are very few opportunities to bring time or attention instead. We're trying to change that, and one of the easiest ways is to find a liquid pool of fungible tokens that can be granted in exchange for actions other than just swiping a credit card. So that's why we do believe that you have to have both, and they address different concerns.
I think that like the market and the tech is also learning from the creators sort of in real time. So every time we think that we've figured out like what the relationship is between social tokens and NFTs, somebody comes around and disrupts it or does it differently. And so I think that one of the key pieces is having the tech and educating creators and community leaders on what it is, but not so much where you're sort of prescriptive. And so I think that one of the things that we do is make sure that we're staying current, we're educating our communities, but at the same time kind of laying the slate blank enough for them to put those sort of community Legos or gaming Legos or connections together in ways that are right for their community. So some, it's a combination, some sort of evolve from like NFT to then having some sort of equal token amount that stands for that NFT. So I think that using the tech as the framework, for me, I think sort of sells communities short versus letting communities put it together in ways that we probably haven't imagined yet.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point. Pivoting a little to I would say more the broader conversation of a lot of these social tokens or NFT communities start as maybe an individual and naturally kind of evolve into a group or a community. And it seems that Friends with Benefits have looked at issuing products. Other creators have naturally looked at creating funds or other types of organizations. Can you talk about how you see the evolution of whether it's a tokenized community at an individual level or community level and kind of what you see happening over the next couple of years?
Yeah, I'm not sure I understand.
So like as you think of communities evolving, how do you envision them building products or them moving beyond just the initial upstart community?
Yeah, I think that piece is super interesting. I know that FWB has been discussing it. We've been looking at, because basically like you get to a place where you run up against the limits of what the tech will do. So like XMTP has been really interesting to me, being able to send messages between wallets. I think that communities are definitely interested in moving into Web3 only as much as possible. And so I think that it's going to be interesting to see either communities build solutions for themselves. That actually happened with one of our accelerator projects where there wasn't a token distribution model that was strong enough, and so he actually just built a solution himself. And I think that, on the other side, having projects come together to then sort of spin up solutions is going to be something else that we see where not every single project or community needs to build it themselves, but can you come together and have these like-minded communities build solutions, share devs, share the sort of open sourcing of this and then share eventually the benefits as well.
One of the things I really like about Seed Club's model is that collaboration method. Rally is leaning in a similar direction with an open ecosystem, developer support, and we've actually made one additional bet, which is we're on a sidechain. So our sidechain allows for cheaper and easier experimentation. We're creating all the bridges to make sure that tokens and NFTs can exit back to mainnet or bridge out. But ultimately, being able to try things without gas, try things without fees, is one way that we're trying to encourage innovation, because I ultimately don't think we've found the killer use cases yet. I think we found some excellent fits inside of specific communities, but the overall burst into the mainstream use case, I think, is still ahead of us. So we need to try as many things as possible, as quickly and cheaply as we can.
Yeah, I think to your question around social tokens or communities and their relationship to products, when I sort of look at the last, let's say, 10 years of consumer, it was a lot of founders coming together, building great products, and through like sales, marketing, acquisition, acquiring users, selling them into their products through, let's say, transactional relationships, customers, and then sort of slapping on community, whatever. Social media was kind of the greatest medium to track engagement through like a community lens. And what's been most fascinating to me from what sort of tokenized communities offer is the ability to now sort of flip that and inverse that. So seeing now communities form almost instantaneously overnight through the new tools that exist in Web3, like Loot Project, for example, just immediately communities born, boom. Then communities through sets of governance and communication and platforms like Discord, et cetera, then coming together to build products for themselves that actually service those needs with ownership over those products themselves, because they're creating additional value that accrues to the overall network, as opposed to, in a lot of instances of the last 10 years of sort of consumer or social, a lot of the value accruing to the owner of that specific company. And so I think, what does the next couple of years of community building or community-driven product look like? I think it's community members really coming together to build products for themselves, or, as Nicole was saying, not necessarily building everything themselves, but collaborating with other values-driven economies or communities, because this isn't a zero-sum sort of network. It's positive sum. We can build together. So much of it is open source. And so really excited to see what the next generation of community-driven products look like that the community actually owns and has governance over, as opposed to sort of a lot of these more custodial social solutions that I think have sort of dictated the last 10 years of our social interactions.
Yeah, no, I think that's an interesting analogy. Chris, I wanted to just jump and have a follow-up to something you just said about there's no killer app or use case that we've seen yet. But you said there's some interesting fits. Are there any verticals that come to top of mind that you're seeing that fit in right now?
So when I think about sort of lowest level NFT use cases, Rally is trying to get our creators to sort of rally around four distinct sort of representations of NFTs in their community. We think of them as keys, which are basically durable or ongoing access to something; tickets, which are sort of like one-time or burnable access to something; art and collectibles, which I think is what you see a lot on Mainnet; and then recognition. So something that comes from the creator back to the community, as opposed to something the creator acquires, or something a fan acquires from the creator. We see a lot of fantastic use cases around keys. People want shared social spaces. Obviously, Friends with Benefits is a perfect example of that. And people want the ability to interact with others that are like-minded. One of the things that I think is actually so interesting about seeing NFTs on Mainnet, you are seeing those other three metaphors of utility spontaneously emerge from things like Bored Ape. I actually think that's kind of it's a cry for more utility for NFTs. The fact that people are applying this meta utility to something that is otherwise just a collectible, it speaks to this fact that we're in day one of the capabilities NFTs can have. And again, like I continue to maintain, we will know it when we see it when it comes to a killer use case. And so far, I think we've created tremendous value while still pushing the boulder uphill. And I think when we start chasing the boulder downhill, it's going to be really, really obvious, and it's going to be really exciting too.
Yeah. Alex or Nicole, are there any verticals that you've seen pop up, whether as part of the accelerator or just through other FWV community members?
I mean, I think that Mirror has been an interesting one because in some ways I think that team is really good at putting a sort of Web 2 or non-crypto native wrapper around something that's quite elegant and really extensible. So, and like the team is so nimble. And so, you know, what that ends up doing, and I think this is important, like obviously all of us in this room are interested in social tokens and in social token-based communities, but there's a lot of people out there that are community involved but don't understand the tech. And so I think that like as they come in and start understanding what's possible, then it sort of becomes this like exponential growth where you bring these communities in, they start meeting other communities that they haven't connected with yet, and then there's sort of that next level. And so I think of like, you know, I have an 8-year-old son and a 10-year-old daughter. 10-year-old's super into like DIY and cooking, 8-year-old's a gamer. And when he hears about Loot and Adventure Gold and all of these pieces, like he's super psyched. He's like, how can I contribute my ideas and start building video games with these people? Like that's what he thinks that I'm here doing right now. And so, you know, he wants to connect. And so when those communities, like when the Gen Z Robloxers come over here, they're going to sort of just explode the space. I tend to think that that's probably going to be one of those sort of chasing the boulder down the hill pieces. And I think similarly, Mirror is really good at making something comprehensible from this like Web 2 level of like, okay, it's medium, but it's not medium. Obviously, there's a ton of functionality below the surface. And so I think that experiences like that, where I often quote Mitch Resnick at the Media Lab, inventor of Scratch, of low floors, wide walls, and high ceilings. And so easy to access, really extensible as far as like what you can do, and then sort of sky's the limit of where you can take it.
Yeah. Do you have anything to add briefly on that?
I think it's access, right? I think if the last 5-7 years has been, DeFi has sort of onboarded most of the users of crypto. Hopefully the next 5 years, the next 50 million users, 100 million users will be through culture, NFTs, art, music, entertainment, things that you might not even understand how it works or what even a token is or an NFT is, but it's the onus is now on the creator to be creative, to find ways to recontextualize that and sort of Trojan horse adoption into the blockchain. And so I think it'll come down to access. Like I think at the end of the day, if it's real life events, real life experiences, incredible art, things that are almost like culture, right, or emotionally based, you'll rationalize how to onboard, sign up, buy, to support if it means bringing you closer to the creator or closer to a sense of community, a sense of belonging that often will trump, especially for say younger children or teenagers, any sort of like financial potential upside in the future.
Yeah, that's the power of the creator brands. It's such a good anchor for a community, and I completely agree with Alex on creator brands and creator personalities will pull people through any amount of roughness in an onboarding.
Yeah, I would like to, we're coming up on time, so I'd like to end with a lightning round, some fun questions and some serious, followed by some brief answers. The first is, if there was any influencer, celebrity, creator that could issue a social token or NFT, who would you want it to be? Chris, if you have one in mind.
Got one. Scott Alexander, currently on Astral Codex 10. I firmly believe that Substack beats Twitter in a lot of cases, particularly around creator livelihoods.
Hot take.
And I think Scott Alexander is a perfect example of same. I also have about probably 3 hours of his content sitting on my phone that I need to actually continue reading through.
So I read recently that Rancho Gordo Beans has a wait list of like 35,000 people. And I think that it's communities like that. Like I think like slow fashion, slow food, those niche brand experiences, the community is already there. So bringing those enthusiasts over, I think is a no-brainer.
Yeah, I mean, any sort of, it's a kind of for me, an obvious, like a Kanye, just someone who can like get kids to do literally whatever he tells them to do. And I think like that's how you get, I think, the next,
That's how we get Gen Z.
Yeah, that's how you get Gen Z. Is like buy this token, and like kids will figure out how to sign up and buy ETH and get on board.
Yeah, if you were to talk to a creator today, and they have to issue an NFT or a social token or any other type of tokenized community, what would you recommend?
I personally think that NFTs first are a really easy way to engage, because with the social tokens, the tokenomics can feel really overwhelming. But when you have an NFT in the wallet, there's that instant connection. And I think that like that's a really sort of undersold piece, is like the wallet to wallet connection. And so once you have the NFT in there, I think that you've established the relationship, and then it gives you time to figure out what to do with the tokens.
+1.
Slightly different take. I think it depends on your time horizon. If you're looking for something transactional, I think NFTs are easier to do once. Whereas I think social token economies, more like an economy, require long-term engagement and long-term lean in. And they develop most of their value on the back end, whereas a lot of current NFTs have their value on the front end.
I think that's a good nuanced distinction. As a social token, you have to commit to almost in perpetuity, it seems like, at least in crypto time.
It's now part of your brand.
Yeah. Last question. So many creators are predominantly monetizing on Ethereum today, or some Ethereum sidechains, whether it's like Rally. Do you think that over the next 3 years, creators will continue to monetize on Ethereum, or are there any other blockchain networks, layer 2s or otherwise, that look incredibly promising that excite you?
I mean, I'm going to talk my book here. Rally has a sidechain. From our perspective, I think you can ultimately monetize in almost any chain, and having a strong chain preference is kind of like having a strong programming language preference. Sometimes there are really good reasons to have a strong programming language preference. Usually there aren't. And I think unless you know your use case is incredibly specific, you're pretty well off using the most general solution available.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's a huge adoption already with Ethereum, but also the gas fees are ridiculous. Polygon, I think, is exploring and building some sort of sidechain solutions. Solana, maybe?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, ultimately, like, I think that the community is going to go where the population is, and we've got to figure out gas.
Yeah, gas. I mean, I think like community members going to where there's hopefully over a long period of time where there's the least amount of friction and the ability to transact quicker and cheaper. And even what Gavin was sharing earlier about like Polkadot, I think I don't have a specific preference yet, but I think hopefully as a lot of these other layers start to propagate, community members, especially, you know, as communities start to like fork off into smaller communities, are going to want to go where it's easier to transact and build.
Here's maybe just a quick follow-up, diving maybe a little deeper on Ethereum then specifically. Is there a certain platform that you recommend, whether that's a generalized marketplace or a specific one, if you have any thoughts? Another way might be, if you're an artist, do you think it's better to go the OpenSea route or try to find a platform like Foundation or Super Rare or something like that?
I mean, we were speaking about the sort of long-term building, and I think that one of the pieces that is going to be more and more important, and we were talking about building your own tools, is owning the contract. And so it's not just about owning the tokens and building in the long term, but also controlling the contract. And so I think that that is going to be really key, and having open source tools that creators can understand and, you know, understand why it's important to own that is going to be really key. So no specific platform, but as much sort of ownership through all the levels is critical.
You heard it from Nicole here first. Not your contract, not your economy.
I like that.
Yeah, that's why we prefer for a lot of our creators for them to use things like Auction House on Zora, where they can ultimately be able to own as much of their IP and content and contract as possible, and to have a lot more flexibility amongst, you know, how it's displayed, not just being prescribed to like, you know, a specific box or just different forms of gatekeepers, if you will, but really being able to build and bring your own community to your own sort of front end site or profile.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. Real quick, where's some place that they can find you online if someone wants to follow your content, find your platform?
Twitter, Alex Zhang, yeah, 2 X's, 2 Z's.
I'm my Bellogica on Twitter, but the seedclub.xyz sends you to our Discord, and that's where the fun is.
Twitter, C49, and if you want to find Rally, we are the QR codes that you are sitting against on each of these chairs.
Play.
Bit of a
Makes it
flex, I'm
easy.
sorry, but had to point them out.
Awesome. With that, I'd like to thank you all again, and I'm sure everyone will stick around and be able to answer a couple questions if anyone has any follow-up. So thank you.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.